we've had so many people write in about your book, and also it's so interesting because I've been really meaning to speak to authors recently, because I myself and Jake, we want to write a book one day, and we just respect God how much work it must be, and how how long it would have taken. Like I get in my head so much about it. I need to have this, and this. So what I'd love to open with for it is because the secret language of the body, for people that are wondering, and you see it pop up everywhere. I've seen it pop up. Even just like when I first looked at the cover, I was like, oh, I've seen that. I've seen that everywhere.
Yeah, me too. Yeah.
And of the process of like, how did you go about doing that, and why did you do that? Like, was it like a sort of like an inner calling, like you were ready to write, or how did that come about for you?
That's a great question. I think, well, for me, I had actually originally studied professional writing and editing and journalism and all of that type of stuff. And I always knew I was going to write. I just thought I was going to write fiction. And then after I had the experience of self-healing, and I realized that I could sense and see things in people's bodies or energy fields, I started making a lot of notes because I just thought it's really interesting. And I was aware that there were books that were out there, that I think there was maybe 2 or 3 around talking about different parts of the body. I think it was more diseases actually. And what I found when I did look at those books at the time was they would give you 1, maybe 2 lines about what was going on with a person. And because I was working with people, I needed much more information. And on top of that, I found that some of the information that I was reading compared to what I was actually getting from a person by tuning into them, by asking questions, was really different. And I had, by that stage, by the time I started thinking about writing a book, I'd been doing healing work maybe 5 years with people, and I was doing it. I mean, we didn't have Zoom or anything like that when I started. It was on the phone or in person with, on the phone with a picture of the person.
Yeah.
And I also found that there was no processes. There was only affirmations in terms of any guidance in these types of books,
So
if
true.
there was anything. And I just didn't feel that affirmations was enough for me in my own healing journey or for the clients that I had. And so as I was working with people, I was always that person that would say to people, you have to do the work as well. Even if you see me once a week, it's not enough. It's not enough to really transform. You have to go home and you've got to do something. And I would write, like by hand, literally write processes out for them. And they would come back and I would say, well, have you done anything? Did you do the process? And they would say, and I would know. And I would say, okay, you can't lie to me because I can tell. And clearly you haven't done it. Why not? Oh, I lost it. I lost the piece of paper. I can't tell you how many times I heard that. And so I really thought about it, and I thought, what if I wrote a book that can't give me that excuse? And also by writing it, what I can do, I could tell that people were so different. So somebody was very visual, like I'm a very visual person, but I didn't even know this until I started doing my own healing work on myself. And other people are auditory, other people are kinesthetic, other people are more feeling, wise related, and they feel things as opposed to hear or see or, or experience touch in that sense. So I wanted to create processes that were really simple that a teenager could do. I'm not going to say a child because depends, maybe a 9-year-old let's say could do, but also that came from different perspectives. So if you're more a thinking person, you would focus on the thinking part of the process. And if you were more a touch, like kinesthetic and touching and feeling, and I heard you guys talk about breath work. So if you were more somebody who's already familiar with breathing and breath work, then you would breathe and connect to your body through in that way. Or if you're somebody who just couldn't sit still, then I would encourage in some of the processes for you to move your body or to stand or to do the things that worked for you. And I actually think that's probably why the book sold over 1 million copies. Being in Australia, again, people don't realize that when you're in the US or even in the UK, you have so many more opportunities in terms of, well, you used to, I think it's changing now, I'm going to say. So it's different. But in the past, when I wrote the book, you actually had to travel. You had to be in that country to promote the book. Otherwise, it just wouldn't, not much would happen. And that's very expensive. That's very intensive, besides writing the book in itself, right? And time consuming. And so I remember I went on tour to the US, and it was like 10-city tour. And I was just nonstop on the phone. My mom came with me at one point, and she was like, "Do you ever get off the phone?" And it's like, no, because I am trying to make this, whatever it was, 8 weeks matter in a way that if somebody lives in the US, they have years to do what I have to do in 2 months' time to make an impact. So, so it is, like, I'm very proud of the fact that that's what's happened and it's been published. I'm pretty sure it's 27 or even more languages by this stage. And it's just, it has been a lot of work, I'm going to say. It wasn't like I just wrote it, I gave it to the publisher, and it was done. I wish.
So did it take off straight away, or how long after launch before it started really like getting legs until you saw like, whoa, like this is starting to be a big thing for me now?
It took years.
Really?
It was the first, I think at the time, the partner that I had, he called up every bookshop that he could call in Australia that could take the book. Because what people don't understand with publishing is that the bookshops don't necessarily take your book just because the publishers published it. And if they take it, they'll take the book for, I don't know, for a month. And then unless it becomes a bestseller in that month, they're not interested. So that, and I'm being generous when I say a month, it could be just one off that they take it. And so then, you have to either show up or do something about it, do something to, I went into a lot of bookshops. I did book signings, I did talks, especially in those first few years. And then again, it was published in Australia, and I started traveling around, maybe around the time that it was published. And my first place that I was traveling to was France. And so again, it was this experience where I actually ended up connecting with people who knew publishers, like one of the biggest publishers in France. And so then the book was published in France. And then I have this incredible story of how it got published in the US, because that, again, was a whole journey in itself in getting the book published in America. And from there is where it started to, and that took 3 years until it was published in the US.
Wow. Wow. That's exciting. Like, how long did it take you to write it from start to finish?
Well, it's really interesting with that book, because that's not happened with any other book I wrote. But with that particular book, at the time I started writing, because it is, it's been a while, I'm going to say. I was 26 at the time, and I had 2 tiny little children, and I was teaching. I was not traveling a lot, but a little bit. And I had non-stop clients. And I wrote the book in a year, and I don't actually know how that happened because of the just I don't know how I was doing it because I think about it and I'm like, how did I do all those
Yeah.
things at the same time and do it in one year? Because usually every other book, the second book I think I wrote took me 3 years. The third book took me 6 years to write.
Mm-hmm.
I'm writing one now, and it's been over a year that I'm putting things together, going away, thinking about it, coming back to it.
Yeah. Okay. And because I've always wondered around like the way you structure it. Like, do you think of like a chapter name and then you just go off the top of that and then you organize the chapters, or are you thinking like start to finish?
It's a great question. Thinking of all the books that I've read, and
Yeah.
um, I feel like with the secret language of your body, originally I broke it down into sections because it's not so much of a chapter type book.
Mm-hmm.
So I broke it down into, beginning, how this works and what people really need to know. And then there was a section on understanding your body. And I think, I break it down and I try to be as logical as I can because I really think about the book from the perspective of how would I want to read this?
Mm-hmm.
If I had this in front of me personally, with the busy lifestyle that I have, because, you always think about the people, who make excuses around why they can't do something.
Mm.
So I always think, okay, so if I was really busy, how would I want this book to be laid out so it was really easy for me to read and understand? And so I go from that place and into what's really practical, what's easy to work with and do, and where is the thread that connects the all the chapters and the parts together. So I don't necessarily know straight away, but I definitely look at the areas that I want to hone in on. And sometimes I think I was very clear with the secret language of your body.
Mm-hmm.
I think in some of the other books it was more intuitive.
Okay.
Or it was more like I think in my second book I wrote chapters on the things that I was really interested in exploring at the time, and the editor went, okay, I think we need to put this into a very different order. Can you rewrite this? So that can happen too.
Okay. Is there anything after you publish it that you wish you did differently? Like, because perfection, we all get stopped with perfection. Do you like, oh, I wish I put that in there, or I wish I didn't do that, or has that happened? Because that would be natural, I'm assuming.
Yeah, it happens all the time where
Yeah.
you go, oh my God, this is so cringy. I wish I never wrote about this. Why did I do that?
Yeah.
Or I know so much more now.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
you breathe through it. And I think the hardest one was also with translations, because the secret language of your body in particular was translated into so many languages, as I said, and some of the languages did not translate the words properly. And that is the type of book where you do need every word to have the same meaning.
Mm-hmm.
And so I had people, like for instance in German, they changed the words, and then several countries in Eastern Europe, because they didn't know how to, because they say divine healing intelligence, and they just had no idea necessarily how to translate that in a way that made sense in their language, but they didn't ask me. So that was really challenging to go, oh my God, that's not what I meant.
What was the what was the reason you got into divine body intelligence? And was it something like, was it Louise Hay? Who were some of your mentors that kind of steered you in the right direction, or was it like a crisis in your life that started that whole journey?
It's definitely a healing crisis, I'm going to say. I was in constant pain. So from when I was really young, I always had digestive issues from childhood, but they were, again, they would come and go, and it was dependent on the food that I ate. And then I also had psoriasis that occurred when I was about, I think, 10 or 11, when I started, because I was born in Eastern Europe. And so when I came to Australia, I actually didn't know one word of English. And as you can imagine, in our culture, we don't necessarily celebrate differences in this country. We're kind of like things to be, how we like it, which is, and I say we because I've lived here for so long now, but essentially, when I was here, Eastern Europe was like the worst place you could ever come from. And so I got really bullied. And I think it was challenging for me because I felt quite like I was quite an extrovert. And before coming to Australia, we were in Italy for about 10 months. And I learned the language quite easily, and I was really loved there. And so I came into Australia, kind of into Melbourne, I'm going to say, feeling maybe Queensland is different.
Yeah.
But in Melbourne, coming in from, from, I think even from anywhere in Europe at the time, but just definitely in Eastern Europe, not being able to speak the language was a real shock for me in terms of how much I was bullied for it. And I just went from this really happy, expressive, very, very creative child into crying every day, into feeling like I need to self-protect all the time. And within a very short period of time, I started getting psoriasis all over my skin, which is also a condition that my dad has and my grandfather and so on. And so it was very uncomfortable. It made things worse. And then a few years later, I went to high school, and it's really interesting because my parents they didn't know what to do, and they were struggling themselves with their own issues. And so they thought, okay, so if we put you into a private school, then maybe you won't have these issues. And by that stage, I could speak English. So they thought, okay, everything's going to be fine. But what they didn't realize is that in the high school, in particular one they put me into, that was private school, with the school was for pretty much pretty wealthy people, with a few spots for people from Eastern Europe, because I don't know, they obviously wanted to look good or something. And and they gave this massive, massive discount to my parents and to a few others that were there. And now me and obviously I had to become friends with the outcasts. And we were all bullied for not the fact that we couldn't speak English, but because we came from much poorer families than these people were used to. And it was a very different type of bullying. And I remember, which is really interesting, obviously I didn't know anything about the body at the time, but I just remember slowly starting to have lower back pain to a point where I couldn't see it. I was uncomfortable all the time. Walking was difficult. I got really bad sciatica. And that just kept getting progressively worse, because if you do nothing in terms of the body, it just gets worse. And so then my mom started taking me to, medical professionals, doctors, physios. She didn't really know anything else. And again, it just wasn't getting better. And the breakthrough for me, which is where this whole thing opened up, was after I went to see this chiropractor. And I was seeing him for about a year. And there were several other traumatic incidents that occurred when I was 19 and 20 and so on. And so I ended up seeing this chiropractor 3 times a week. And then I would see somebody who did some other body work 2 other days of the week. So at times it was 5, a full-time job. But what was happening was that I was going with the attitude that I had been taught from that I learned from childhood, which was, I don't know anything about my body. You do. You're the
Yeah.
person who knows. Fix me. And that just wasn't really working for me. And I did. I'm gonna say I did at one point look at Louise Hay's book, and I said that affirmations, and it just nothing happened for me with the affirmations. So I actually had more skepticism at that time than belief around something like that. And so what actually did happen there, I think I said I was studying professional writing and editing, and one of the subjects we were taught was linguistics. So, and linguistics is not an easy topic, and it's almost mathematical, I felt. And you're breaking down language essentially. And so I went to see this chiropractor one day. I was just in agony. He ended up coming out of his office. He'd known me for over a year, I think, by that stage. And he said to me, your body's stuck. And I was like, yes, tell me something I don't know. What are you going to do to help me? And he said, nothing. There's nothing I can do. Your body wants to be stuck. And I really think he thought about this for a while because of my attitude. And he said, go home, and you need to kind of connect with it, essentially, is what I heard. I didn't like that. So I was really angry on the way home. But again, because I had this whole linguistic understanding in my head, I was thinking, okay, so it does have a language. And yes, I'm aware of, things like Louise Hay briefly, mainly because at that stage, I would look at those types of books and I would go, okay, I'll repeat the affirmation 100 times, nothing happened, put it away. Yeah. And so it wasn't a real deep dive into anything like that. But when I went home, I thought, you know what, I'm going to heal myself. This is the thing that I've never done. It's the thing I've never tried. And so I started by placing my hands on my back because I wanted to support my back and because I was in so much pain. And I immediately, and this was really interesting, I realized that I wasn't breathing. And it was quite interesting because it occurred to me the only time that I actually allowed myself to breathe deeply was when I and I was doing acting classes at the time as well, was when I was in the acting school. And we did breath work there, but it was also, I could let go. I felt like, oh my God, this is my space. This is where I feel safe. I can be whatever I want to be here. I can be creative. I can express all the suppressed parts of myself from school. And it was just a really interesting observation. I was scared to breathe deeply because I thought this is going to be much more painful if I breathe deeply. But I also had a realization that I'm never going to get anything from my body if I don't connect to it in terms of breath and touch. And so as I was doing that, I also started counting backwards from 30 because my mind was getting really negative. And this is where it comes to the question you asked, and I'm sorry it's taken so long.
No, it's good, yeah.
So as I was doing all that, it occurred to me that I wondered if I asked for divine help, if something would happen, because I was in a bit of a conflict around the existence of it at the time and to what degree it did. And so I just basically said, okay, if there is anything divine out there, and I don't know, but if there is, I want help and I want it now. And I had zero expectation, just, of anything happening. And it was just like this warmth started coming into my body. And because I had my eyes closed, I could see almost like a golden yellow sunlight. And the thing that I could feel was a very soft unwinding of the tension that I was holding on to in my body. And so I thought, okay, interesting, something's happening. And then there's this very random, strange thought that I never had that came into my mind. And the thought was, I wonder what my back looks like if I could see it. And again, there was nowhere where I was expecting to actually be able to do that. But within a few moments, the only feeling that I can describe was that somebody was standing next to me and literally put this light on, like a switch on in my brain. And all of a sudden, I could see my back. And so I had a bit of a fright, but I could see the inflammation. I could see the exact area where the vertebrae was super inflamed and twisted and so on. And so I went, okay, so why do I have this at this young age? I don't even think I was 21 at that time. Why do I have this? And all of a sudden, I think I said to you that I was visual, all these visual images. It was like memory meets just actually kind of seeing what really happened. And so I saw everything that I've just talked about. I saw the two schools, I saw my parents, I saw the conflict they had with themselves at the time, how I felt uncomfortable going home, uncomfortable at school, how there was an ancestral aspect that came up. I was aware of my grandparents and how much trauma they'd been through and how that affected me. And I also became aware of the fact that I was this sponge that if I was around people and they had pain, I would always have pain afterwards. And so I cried, I felt through as much as I could, and I fell asleep. And the next day when I woke up, about 70% of the pain was gone. And in my own skepticism, I still thought, you know what, I have had that happen before when I went to a practitioner. What will make me believe that this works is if it's lasting, because that's never happened, and it would be 1 week, 2 weeks, sometimes I think a month, and I would be okay, and then I would crash. So for the next 3 weeks, I was really connecting. I was journaling. I was I was a detective. I was putting all the pieces of the puzzle together. And by the end of those 3 weeks, I had no back pain, and I've never really had back pain since. Psoriasis disappeared. My anxiety went right down, and I definitely could eat more food without reacting to it. But yeah, the digestive system took a lot longer because it was very ancestrally and intertwined. And so from that experience, I obviously also didn't know that I could tune in and see into people, but that started happening. And from there, I went, if this is happening, maybe I need to learn about it. Maybe I need to understand it. And that's when I started interviewing people who were really well known and who wrote books. And so, and then again, in a very long-winded way, we come to the people who I was really influenced at the time by much more by Caroline Myss than I was by Louise Hay's work at the time, partly because I think Louise was amazing and opened the doors to that type of understanding from like the 70s. And whereas to me, with Caroline, she had the same ability, I felt, or very similar to me, to be able to see things. And she'd worked with a doctor, and I ended up eventually working with a doctor for quite a while. And to me, it was something that made much more sense of how she was getting information, how she was seeing things. Whereas I felt like Louise Hay, she found that information, got it from someone else, but she did not get it herself. So she wasn't able to do, that type of work.
Yeah. That's amazing.
Yeah, that is, that's cool. When you're talking about seeing in others, what does that look like for you?
Well, now it changed, over time. things changed. I think you kind of, the first time I ever saw something with somebody, it actually was a friend of my partner's at the time, and I was doing an assignment for for my writing class, and she was a good writer, and so she was just at my computer checking my writing, and then I turned to her, and this was literally the very first time I saw anything. I could see this cartoon looking liver above her head. And I remember thinking, oh my God, something's going really wrong with me. And so I was opening and closing my eyes. And then I eventually got the courage to ask her, because she was saying, do you have something in your eye? What's going on? And I said to her, do you have liver problems? And she said, yes. How do you know? Which was a very difficult question for me to answer. But as she said that, the image changed, and I saw her grandfather, who I just, like, I knew he'd been in a concentration camp. I had a feeling that she had the same issue, that it was hereditary, that I knew that she had nightmares. I knew all this stuff about her, that, but I didn't know her. And I thought, and she didn't know some of it, because it was actually to do with her ancestry. She to call her parents and, or her mother. And it was pretty intensively confusing for me, I'm going to say, at that time, because I thought, what is gonna, like, how am I going to live like this? But eventually what I found was that the more refine the ability, that came out in a completely unrefined way. So when I say refine, there's so many really powerful exercises you can do, and some of those exercises are like learning deep concentration and kind of moving energy through that concentration exercise. It's learning exercises to do with your will, with your equanimity. So actually really allowing yourself, most people's emotions go up and down and all around. Whereas if you really practice equanimity as one of the as refining your intuition, then you start to become really aware of subtleties. So you start to go, ooh, I'm getting more, my inner being is aware of how, it's like I am experiencing things in another dimension, but I can also, I'm in charge of it, as opposed to, I used to walk down the street and all of this bombardment from somebody just crossing the road would happen for me, and I'd go, oh my God, I can't do this. I don't want to live like this. And so I, with time, learned how to manage it, where I can turn it on and off. And so if I'm doing it now with somebody, I will connect to their, I'm going to say, inner self, as well as their body. And I'll usually say to the person, just tell me as little as possible, because I don't want to be influenced by you. I'll ask you questions that I need to know, because, I will see the threads that connect. But, unless I don't have time, which, in that case, I'll say, okay, what do you want to look at? Let's look at that. But usually, if it's a proper session, which I don't do very often anymore, just because I don't have time, because I'm teaching most of the time. So when, but if I was to do it, it would, I would ask the body, the intelligence of the body, essentially, to show me, where do I start? Where is the starting point for this person? Because what most people don't realize is that wherever they have their health condition, if it's been there for a while, is probably not where it started. And, and what I'm trying to do is to go, okay, show me. And I'll kind of focus on scanning their body and looking for that first area of, where do I begin? And I'll see it as potentially, let's say it's the neck. So I'll see it as a neck, and it'll be either there'll be a circle around it, or there'll be, or around a particular vertebra, a particular part of the neck. Let's say if we're starting there, and it might show me that it's the left side of the neck, for instance. And so I'll know, okay, that is connected already, because I already know the wisdom of the body. I'll go, that's probably connected to your feminine and to your relationships with females, important females in your life. So I'll start asking questions around it, because I know the body has wisdom. And then I'll go, where's the next part and the next part? And I'll actually create a map. I really believe in mapping things out so that I can see where it starts, where it's going, what are all the parts connected to this issue. And from there, I'll think about, okay, what do we do? What are the best processes? Where do I start with this person? And that's how I also teach I'm finishing a practitioner training course.
That's cool. That'd be so good to do.
Yeah.
Tap in.
Right now, touching the left side of my neck.
Yeah, that's crazy. And yeah, far out. So like it just came to you with visions basically at the start, and then you fine tuned it and started to use it. I think I see when I'm seeing not practitioners, but people, I'm always kind of like, I always tune in and say, can you connect me with their soul? And can you show me where it needs to happen? And sometimes, like I would say, I'm a beginner at that. Like sometimes it's very strong, and sometimes it's like, oh, I feel like I'm off the mark there. But I sometimes I'm like, that's it for sure. Yeah. How do you fine tune and know that you're getting a non-ego yes, or a soul yes, or a universal yes, or their body's wisdom yes? There's so many different feelings.
I think and that's a great question. This is one of the reasons that I don't love, I'm going to say, tuning into my family, just because I know that it's fine if I do healing work on them, but if I'm just trying to really scan something and look, I have this, potential desire for it all to be, good.
Yeah.
And so,
yeah, true.
Right. And so objectivity is not amazing when it comes to, to family members. I mean, with my partner, I'm always, if he has an issue, I'll be like, he at times gets headaches, and I'll go, okay, like it's right here. And he'll go, yeah, exactly. But most, so the closer I am with a person, the more I'm like, I start to get into this. I don't know how much I trust something 100% when, like I said, when I want a certain result. And I think that you're always going to with your family in that sense. But I feel like when it is a person I don't know well, or even I know them, but I don't have that, you check in with yourself. And I go, I don't have any kind of need or desire for it to be anything than what it is. Then I find that when I ask them, when I, like you said, soul, is what I ask essentially. And I'll feel it. I'll feel it inside, but I'll also see it. So I have both aspects that are very attuned in a sense to the person. And so I'll keep asking the question. I'll keep saying stuff like, just to give an example, again, I was doing a session and a friend of mine, and again, I'm not a fan of doing that, but I really wanted to help her to understand her condition. And I just felt like she's been going round and round and round in circles. And she's had a tumor, but it is not malignant.
Mm.
And I was actually quite fascinated. I was like, I wonder why it didn't get malignant, but also why it didn't disappear. Like why, because why is it just there? And what was really interesting for me was that I also work with something called the etheric hands process. So I've realized, so we have subtle bodies that hold different aspects inside of them. And one of them is called the etheric body. And the etheric body in itself is the body of chi, life force, memory, ancestry. And it also has every kind of organ and every part of the body that's the same as the physical. And so I see things happening in the etheric body way before they happen in the physical. And so it's also the body of memory. And science in itself has been very confused about memory. So we talk about cellular memory, and it's like, well, that has never made, like, I've used that word and I've said it myself, but if we break it down, I was like, well, how does a cell in itself like have memory by itself? It's physical. And is it the cell, or is it the etheric body, which is the body of memory, that holds it? Because I'm like, where is memory? Where has science said, where have they found the materialistic science? And so, to me, it was like, well, if the etheric body holds memory, and we say all this stuff like subconscious and unconscious, and I was like, where is it? Like, thank you for sharing, but where is it? Like, I'm that person. I'm more scientific probably than most of the scientists out there in that sense. I'll be like, show me, help me to understand, break it down for me. I want to know. And so I realized with the etheric body that if you sensitize your hands, for instance, because we have healing chakras inside of our hands, that's how we, can do healing work in terms of energy. If we sensitize it and we actually work with the etheric hands enough, which are like physical hands, but they can go deeper and they can release toxins and all sorts of things from the body. But if we work them in terms of timeline, because I've looked at, and I've done enough courses in my life, to, I think, more courses than most people can dream of doing, and read in more books and went to more, like, because I want to learn. And so to me, just using your mind has never been enough. Like, I don't find it enough, because it is so easy, in my perspective, to get distracted in terms of your mind, even with timelines and everything, that I've never trusted it to give the specificity that I believe we should have. And so I started playing for like the last 20 years and exploring these etheric hands. And what I found is that the more you work with them, because that is another kind of huge part of your intuition, is that they take you to the exact timelines where things happen that you need to work on. And I'm that person who doesn't like the word root cause, because I don't understand what people actually mean by it. Because to me, it's like, well, there's a layered cause, because as soon as even if we can get to the exact moment when something started, once it started, there's layers that have been created from it. It is not like a house of cards. And I feel like a lot of people took the meaning of the root cause like the house of cards, that if I get there and I have this card deck, right, when we create that, and I take it out from underneath, everything falls. Well, I don't see that happening at all, because because there's, from that root cause, there's so many things that have been layered. So it's like we actually have to go timeline through the experiences that were the most important, I'm going to say, that were connected to this, that hold that whole pain or trauma, whatever the experience is. So again, I've tried to be as detailed as I can in the last 25 years of studying, exploring it, and going. So if we used our etheric hands and went back to the memory inside the memory body, including sometimes to the exact day or the exact time of what actually occurred, then our specificity and accuracy becomes so much more. And then we can really find the beliefs, the emotions, the traumas that occurred at the right time and transform it at the level of the etheric body instead of what most people do, I found, which is they transform it in a generalized way at the level of the astral body, which is the emotional body. It contains the soul, it holds our desires and wants and needs, but it's general and it can change within a minute, but it also can change back almost as quickly. And it doesn't hold because it's not the memory part of us. And so the more I learned, the more I went, oh, wow, this is amazing. And so again, so I keep going round and round because it's like I've been doing this for so long. So there's so much to say in terms of specificity. And so with this friend of mine, I said, okay, well, I don't really know her history. So I'm pretty sure I'm going to be objective and accurate here. And I went back to, she's 62 now. So we went back to when she was 46. And so I started saying to her, okay, so something happened when you were 46. Tell me what happened. And she started saying, well, I went on this holiday and I went this and I went that. I'm like, no, 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 no. I'm not feeling that. And I work with archetypes. So I will ask on that level of the astral. So I always work with both the astral and the etheric bodies together. And so I'll ask, okay, show me an archetype of what happened to her so I can work from there at that time period. And I saw the feminine part of her that was throwing up, like literally throwing up. And again, we were focused on the tumor. That was the focus. I want to understand where it started, how it started, what's going on. And so as she was throwing up, I said to her that something happened, and I'm just like, it is very connected to that feminine in you and the throwing up, like you couldn't hold it anymore. Something happened. And so finally we got to the year before her father had died. Now, this friend of mine had a secret about her, who she was and how she showed up in the world, that she never told her parents. And when her father died, it was like literally within that year of him, after he died, it was like for the first time in her life, she could be completely honest about who she was. And it was that throwing up, like, oh my God, I cannot hold this anymore. And I don't have to. That, again, it took a few minutes, I'm going to say, to figure this out. Because then I was like, okay, well, this is interesting. I'm going to come back to this as I'm creating a map. Let's go further back. And so I went further back, and I went right back to, it was really interesting. The next time my etheric hands kind of stopped, we went back to where 10 years before that, where her mother died again, same thing. And I could see that there was a lot of grief and there was like shock and so on that happened. But there was a part of her that went, oh, I don't have to not tell her what's really going on with me now. Oh, that part is over. And, and then we went back to when she was 28, and she made a decision she knew she was different. She knew that from when she was very young, but she made a decision, okay, I'm going to live my life in a particular dynamic with people, but I'm not telling my family or my close friends. So what was really interesting for me was that the tumor started around that time period. And when I look at everything I've learned in terms of the chakras and how they work and when they develop, including when the soul, the soul develops, it's not just generalized. So when I look at all of this, I went, oh, this is really interesting because this, in her storyline, this is, even though the tumor is in the back, I was like, the starting point is the throat. And it happened, I felt and I saw that, because I was like, show me when the tumor started growing. It was right at the time of that development of her throat chakra, meets the fact that she made a decision to be in a relationship with somebody but not share it with her family. And now we went back as far as when she was 6 years old, where the seeds were created for her to have this tumor laid on, but the growth did not start until she was 28. And so when people talk about things like, well, let's say genetics, oh, I have this because of my father or my mother, and to me it's the same. You have the seeds, but they only start when you start behaving and acting and doing the things that create that storyline. And so it was so interesting and fascinating for me to really break it down with my friend in that way, and to realize that when we go back to the reason, when I saw the image of throwing up, she already had a tumor by that stage, but it didn't become malignant. And I said to her, it's almost like it's horrible to say this, but it's like your dad, your parents died at the right time, like your dad, because had you held it in for longer, this not being able to say who you are, it would have become malignant. But because you hadn't, it didn't. Because you were able to just in time, because it takes so long, unless you put poisons inside your body, for it to become
Yeah.
like that,
Wow.
as we saw during COVID.
Yeah.
It's like your old man.
Yeah. My sounds very similar to my dad's story. He was basically with my mum for a long time and got throat cancer, and it was all about speaking his truth. But I've been thinking about that a lot lately. Speaking your truth in ways of like, if you the price to pay for not speaking your truth and being truly who you are in this life is so, it's like creating hell in heaven. And I just see it more and more. I don't know why lately I've been seeing it more, but I see so many people not being true to themselves. And I think it's like the biggest gift you can give yourself is like, actually, whether you're gay or trans or whatever it is, you can't live in a shadow because the body will pay.
Yeah.
And then you got the organic food and all that stuff. There's I think they're both the same thing, eh? I think it's like they all help each other. So you're eating good, you're doing all that, and then you're emotionally clean as well, emotionally organic. I think it's like, it's just so important, eh? It's so important.
Yeah. It is, and it has to be now. I think we're in a time where things, food is, even organic food. I've had this conversation with so many people who know about it, go to the farms, grow it.
Yeah.
Essentially, for it to give us the nourishment that we really need, it needs to be biodynamic. It needs, and it tastes so different. I don't know if you've tried it.
Yeah.
It is so different because it's grown in a completely, different and nourished way. And yeah, so it's like we have to detox.
Isn't it a paradox? Yeah. It's like the more alive something is with life force energy, the more we can survive and thrive. It's so weird. It's like, you have to almost take life of plant or whatever you eat to give you life. And then
Yeah.
for you to be a strong, like etheric or a spiritual body, you have to have strong spirit in you. And that comes from food, emotional intelligence, and all that kind of stuff.
Yeah, I just did a couple of weeks in Bali, and God, like you just start waking up tired, you know, and just from like sleeping in aircon and the air quality. And then I remember I had a mandarin that they put on the table, and it tasted like just fiber, like
Just psyllium husk, psyllium husk mandarin.
like just no like sweetness or like life in it, you know.
Yeah.
And then like I got this guy to drop this soil to my house, and this guy's like, he calls it Morpheus, the soil. He's so passionate. It's like you with the books. This guy was soil, right? He just loves everything to do with soil, and he's like puts it in my nose and like smell it, you know, like taste it, like And then I grew some rocket in this soil, right? And I even like filtered the water and everything. And I tasted this rocket, and I was like, holy shit, like this is different to every rocket you buy, even at the farmer's market. Like it burnt your mouth. It was so, and the color. And I got a bit of the soil and I sprinkled it on the grass. And then I looked back at that grass a week later, and that grass just went dark green relative to all the grass around it. And I was like, man, imagine if everything we ate was this level of like quality, you know, the animals, the soil, like, and just like, how can you got to get that in your life somehow, you know?
Yeah. And like you said about organics, it's hard to figure out, like biodynamics, the best, obviously that's Rudolf Steiner's method, but organic doesn't mean shit anymore. It's like, it's certified organic in Australia, and it has to be certified, but like then people pay for the certification, which costs a lot of money, and it's not even that good. When I know Cape Grim meat, for instance, in Tasmania has live cameras of them grazing and eating beautiful pastures and stuff like that. That's going to be a lot better to a certified organic farm up here that cows are tick dipped or whatever. Legally, you have to do that on this side of the range here. But it's so, there's so many different layers to it. And what I've realized lately, I had this epiphany, like clients are always telling you that they're eating healthy.
Yeah.
They're like, and I didn't realize, because we've been doing it for so long, how ingrained in us it is. Like we'll still eat takeout every now and then or whatever, rarely, but they kind of like, yeah, like I'm healthy. Like Cal the other day had someone who was like smashing Wheat Bix and thought that was healthy.
Yeah, and this guy goes eat pretty clean, and then he has Wheat Bix in the mornings. And great guy, right? He's
absolutely. We're not judging this guy, like all the power to everyone.
But he didn't realize, and his body was telling me something else. Because I said it in front of him. I was like, man, to be honest, like you couldn't get any more darker circles under your eyes right now. Like there's something that you're doing that your body's saying otherwise. And I broke it down, like Wheat Bix really is sprayed with glyphosate. And glyphosate is like, everyone knows about glyphosate, right? It just kills you. And I just know that every day you're starting your day with glyphosate and wheat. And if you really just break down when we were kids, remember all the ads with like Brett Lee bowling and like the cricket teams and having 10 Wheat Bix a day? And if you really just look at it and you're like, whoa, that's actually just cardboard. Yeah. And then I went to the organic shop the other day and got all my vegetables, and I was like, look how alive this food is, like the color and like the moisture and that. I'm like, that's running through my body compared to the packaged dried food that your body has to rehydrate to pass it through you and use. And people they think they're really healthy. I had this girl with skin issues, real acne, right? And she stresses about a lot of things. She was like crying on like voice messages to me, like, can you help? And I was like, she goes, I eat so clean, so healthy. And I was like, what's for breakfast? And she has like, it's like toast every single morning with like something else, avocado and whatnot. There's nothing wrong with that, but you can't eat the same thing over and over again. That doesn't respect the rules of nature and seasons and everything. And I'm like, toast is like fine once in a while, but remember, for millions of years, you weren't having toast every single day. And she thought she wasn't eating sugar, but forgets that bread breaks down into sugar. So I was like, really? And I went on ChatGPT. I go, how many teaspoons of sugar is in some of these things? And it's basically like 4 or 5 teaspoons of sugar to start your day. And I put my ancestry, which is from Central Europe, I believe, when I got my genetics done, into ChatGPT. And I go, how much sugar was I eating 20,000 years ago or 10,000 years ago? And on average, and this is probably most of humans, unless you're like in somewhere close to the equator, 2 to 4 grams a day That's what we evolved on. And you're having a bit of meat, you're having some berries, and even that was rare.
Yeah.
And these days, kids are getting 60 to 100 grams a day, and then wondering why little Billy can't concentrate in school today because rah, 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 rah. But really just having Wheat Bix and sugar.
Yeah.
And then remember, you're putting sugar on top of the Wheat Bix.
Yeah.
And we think that
I
was
used to
normal.
put layers of it when I was a kid. Like you get raw sugar and you like milk, and then you put the layers of that, and then you put but no one told me.
My nana would put sugar
You don't
on...
know.
You don't know what
you don't know.
Yeah.
Yeah, my nana would put sugar on banana white bread sandwiches, ended up with the craziest diabetes.
Yeah. I've been studying. Do you know who Barbara O'Neill is?
Yeah.
So I've been going through her lectures. Oh my God, she's so good, even though she's crazy vegan, a little bit like different to the way we think. But
You take some gold
I
from her,
love
though.
her stuff.
Yeah.
I take so much.
Yeah,
of it.
my
It's
partner
so
loves
gold.
it where he follows her a lot as well. And
It's very
she's
fascinating.
Right. And I'm gonna say, the person that actually that has impacted me the most in my work in the last 12 years, I'm gonna say, has been Rudolf Steiner's work.
Wow.
I absolutely love his work.
Yeah, he's crazy.
have 200 books, 250 books of his.
Wow.
Whoa.
Yeah, so you get the life force of the soil.
I even get the life force of books.
yeah, especially he was like, I've only read a few of his books, but I know Paul talks about him all the time, Paul Check, and he's like him and Walter Russell and Carl Jung are like otherworldly. They're just their body of work is so ginormous. You could study it forever, especially Steiner's.
Forever, exactly. And it's, and I found that for me, when I discovered Steiner's work, I went from being a little bit more new agey and, and into generalizations, from that to being super specific. And I mean, Steiner was a scientist first, and he was this incredible clairvoyant, but actually, on a scale of evolution, what he's done is not comparable to any other human being that you can look at, and he died so young as well. So he died when he was 64. To do what he did with the schooling, with the biodynamic farming, with you have anthroposophical medicine, you have just like everything, you have massage, you have body therapies, you have homeopathics that is so different to the normal homeopathics. You have eurythmy therapy, which is the movement therapy. You have, like, he basically took all the books to do with, like, the Bible, the just everything that are kind of esoteric, or even just what people read, the Bible, the Bhagavad Gita, the Torah, everything, that every religion that you can imagine that I can't think of right now, and broke it down and went through it and, showed us how we evolved. I mean, it's just wildly incredible.
Yeah. Do you listen to much of Paul Check at all?
I don't really know of him.
Oh, I think you'd love his stuff.
You would love Paul's
Yeah, because he's a Steiner. He's probably read he's read every single Steiner book known to man. I think even ones that you really can't get.
Ones that have to get translated and stuff.
Yeah. Like, but his body of work, I would say, would be close to like someone of Steiner, like just on everything. Because everything you said then, Paul's really studied a lot of it. But have a listen to his podcast, because that's how we got into. It's called Check, so it's after his last name, Corrective Holistic Exercise Kinesiology. But what I thought was a very body thing started out to be way more mental, emotional, and this is when 11 or 12 years ago when I was young.
Changed our life.
It changed our life a lot, and for young men, in our 20s when we started, it was so good to see such a older masculine man that didn't take no shit, but also was very in touch with his feminine, and It introduced us to Steiner and so many things.
Yeah.
So many things.
60 somethings and just
Yeah.
jacked and healthy and organic and just like
Yeah.
lives the example, you know? But
Yeah.
yeah, you would love the vibe, and also very tapped in, you know?
Yeah.
Shaman.
Yeah, he's a shaman too. But I did have one question for you, just for the listeners.
Yeah.
If you could give them one piece of advice to tap into their body and ask it some serious questions and how to do that, what would you say?
I really feel that firstly, you have to wake the body up, because for most people, now that I know how awake you are. I'm assuming people have heard lots of things from your podcast. I'm always like, where can we go with this?
Yeah.
Look, I really think that most people are in their heads. They're running on adrenaline. Their nervous system is dysregulated. So what they really need to do is start by waking the body up, and that can be, ideally, if you have a little trampoline and you can just, we all, I think, in the alternative movement know the healing part of getting your lymphatic system going in the morning.
Mm-hmm.
But even if you don't have that, just standing up, I think a great exercise that I teach people is start with, most people sit or lie when they're trying to tune in or connect. And if you know anything around Rudolf Steiner's work, he will say that, your sense of self is not connected to you unless you're really standing. When you're sitting, when you're lying, the I, which, that part of you that guides the wise self as well, there's the part of the ego that is egotistical, that we want to transform. I'm going to say not even dissolve, we want to redeem it and transform it. And then there's the part of the ego that we want to, that is the higher self, that we want to awaken. And so when you stand, you're actually connecting more to that, to the higher aspect of you, and your I am is there, your sense of self is there. And so I would say to people, okay, start by closing your eyes, going inside yourself and kind of scanning, where do I feel uncomfortable? Just start with the uncomfortable area. It could be pain, could be just numbness. We carry so much numbness inside our bodies. So placing your hands on the part of your body where that it is numb or uncomfortable or in pain, and saying, what am I carrying here? And you could go into detail by saying, what are the thought patterns that I have in this part of my body right now? What are and not just one, dig, ask that a few times. What are the feelings that are connected? Because the thought is what feeds the feeling and creates the feeling. And then you go, okay, so thought, feelings, depends on who I'm teaching. I might go, let's go to symbols. So if this feeling and this thought had a symbol, let's say shape, what shape would it be? And they might go, okay, square. Okay. And if that square had a color, what color would it be? And is this a healthy color that your body's showing? Because the astral body, which is the emotional body in itself, will show you how you are in color. That's how it speaks. That's what we say, this is my aura. It shows it through color. And so people usually go, oh, I have this color, but I don't know what it means. It doesn't matter. The question is this a healthy color or an unhealthy color? And most people get that. And from there, I will actually say, okay, now visualize in front of you a purple fire. And we've seen fire, but purple is again a color of actual transformation, because we want to transform this density. And then I'll say, okay, now with your hands, not your mind, but with your hands, I want you to grab that dense, square, let's say, and acknowledge what it's about. Are you willing to let this go? If the answer is yes, then put it into the purple fire and then shake your arm for about 30 seconds. With that intention, I'm letting go, I'm shaking it out, I'm letting go of the tension and stress. So you do that, and then you come back to the body, and now you've adjusted something inside your nervous system. And so now we're going to bring some stability into the nervous system. And we're going to do that energetically as well. So we're going to rub our hands together for about 30 seconds, place our hands slightly apart. We're going to work, let's say, with green color, because that's the color that works on calming the nervous system down. And we're going to say and put the intention of peace. So peace and calm. And so we'll say that for another 30 seconds. And then you'll just pour literally that energy. And now you're going to breathe that in. And as you're going to breathe that in, you're going to breathe through your nose and out through your mouth with slightly pursed lips, because that regulates the nervous system. And so you're going to do that for a minute, let's say. And then you're going to repeat with the other hand. So use one hand. So we're working with two sides of the body with the other hand. And it might be the same part of the body or different. And again, you're going to ask what's going on there, what am I holding there, and release it. So because when you do, and then again the same nervous system, coming back to that process, because when you do that, you start to come back into yourself, and to feel, to ground and all sorts of things. Come back to yourself, and you start to release the stagnation, which is energetic, emotional, mental, and you're doing it physiologically as well. Like I did an exercise at one point with somebody who had really bad back pain. And I said to her, okay, so if we had to see symbols in your back, what would it be? And she said, rocks. And I said, okay, fine. We're going to take these rocks out. You're going to tell me what they represent, and we're going to put them into this purple fire, and let's see what happens. And within, I don't know, 3 minutes, she was able to let go of that pain and walk. Whereas before she was like, I cannot stand, I'm in that much pain. So again, she was somebody who'd done quite a bit of healing work before. I'm not going to say that this happens for somebody who's never done anything, but, you know, because it does require, healing requires internal flexibility. It requires a flexible nervous system. There's just no doubt about that. The more flexible it is, the easier and the faster the healing happens. So, so getting a person to really connect to their body means to move it, to ask questions, to breathe, and to get your nervous system into a calmer state. And then you can, you know, eventually go into much, much deeper exploration and get, you know, much more accurate insight, as opposed to saying, I'm not getting anything, you know, I'm stuck in my mind.
Yeah, fully. Yeah, it's just connecting to your body. Hey, so important.
Beautiful. Well, thanks for coming on. It's been a great chat.
Yeah, thank you so much for your time.
It was inspiring, and people, we'll chuck your book in the show notes and whatnot. And
Thank you.
and yeah, thanks for coming on. Appreciate it.
Yeah, I'm gonna buy your book and I'm gonna read it because I'm inspired.
Thank you. And if I can say something, at the moment we are, and I don't know for how long, but at the moment we've got some free masterclasses that are on my website, and they're more like a workshop, a mini workshop, and so it's on innasegal.com. And these masterclasses, I actually will pick a topic, for instance, archetypal healing work, or you know, connecting to your body and getting messages from it, and or inner child, or purpose, how to understand more about your purpose. And I'll go through almost like to map it out for people.
Cool.
And also give not processes like I'm saying now, but actually guide you through a, you know, 10-minute, 15-minute, you know, half an hour process, so that people can experience that. And it's just a really great way to combine, if you're going to get the secret language of your body with that type of you know, guidance, which is
so that's a free masterclass on your website.
Yeah, there's several. So
oh, great!
whatever
great.
topic you want to explore, you'll see.
Yeah, well,
There's
I'm
one
gonna
the
have a good
secret
look at that.
language.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, thanks very much.
Yeah,
And
that's awesome.
you.
Yeah,
Jump on
and-
her website and have a look, guys.
yeah, and yeah, much love.
Yeah, thank you so much.